Hi, welcome to the Binmin podcast. We know that the Christian life can be hard to figure out, but we also believe everyone should know the next step for making their Christian life more important to them. I'm Pops.
I'm Libby.
And I'm Bob.
Today, we have a very special guest who is going to help us understand or answer the question, what Christian women need more than anything.
Probably brunch.
Yes.
Always brunch.
Maybe
Caffeine.
little weekender trip.
It's either brunch or charcuterie.
Ooh,
One of those
charcuterie,
two.
yes.
Nice.
Should have worn my hoodie. It's Gouda Brie, okay.
Oh, that's great. Oh.
Bob, you want to go ahead and introduce our guest?
Yeah, actually, well, I tell you what, Libby, do you want to introduce our guest
Sure.
for today?
Absolutely. Today we have with us Eve Stipes, who is the executive director of Ruth Jo Simon's ministry and is the co-host of the Grace Laced podcast, where they discover grace laced in the everyday and think about cultivating growth in every season.
And if I may also add, has a rock star family, whom I love very much, with her husband and 3 kids and her poodle, and loves talking about God's word and how it applies to real life. So full disclosure, Eve and I have been friends for like over 12 years now.
I mean, my kids call you Uncle Bob.
Yes, which is great. Yes, you guys are Aunt Eve and Uncle Cody. So she is someone who I'm thrilled to have kind of share today with us.
Yeah, and I have to go, I love these backstory things, all right? I love these origins. So, every story has this background. How did you end up working in a ministry directed at women with Ruth?
Yeah.
Ruth.
So Ruth came and spoke at a conference in Indianapolis, where I live, probably 7 years ago now. Maybe closer to 8 or 9. And I went with a friend who was very excited to meet her. And she said, we have to go introduce ourselves. And I was like, it's not as much my personality to do, but I was like, let's do it. Let's go. So we did. And it was a small enough conference that we ran into each other a few more times over the course of the weekend. And she was back about 6 months later. This same friend sent a message. Instagram DMs were brand new. And she sent a message saying, do you remember meeting us 6 months ago? We should have coffee. And I was like, you are so much bolder than I am. But we did. And so that was really the beginning. We sat and talked over coffee for a couple hours and just became friends and kept in touch. And Indianapolis is a convention conference town. And so she was back pretty regularly for the next couple of years. And we connect every time. And eventually she said, hey, do you want to work with me? And I said, yeah, let's see what happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I didn't know that story.
Yeah.
Was any of that as in your discernment process of kind of doing what you're doing now? Did any of that come out of a place of something you're like, hey, this is something I already either think about or I'm doing, or kind of your piece in that?
Yeah, so I was coming off of 6 years in the classroom teaching, and then I'd been on staff at my church for a couple of years doing some writing. And so I was looking for something. I just had my oldest child and was looking for something that was a little bit more flexible, that I could do from home, that wasn't totally full-time. And so it just fit. Like, it was a good ministry lean. I got to use a lot of my gifts from my super varied background, and it was a good fit.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. Dream job. You actually are doing what you want to do.
It is kind of amazing. It's
That's
the best
amazing.
job.
Well, today we're asking the question, what do Christian women need most? And especially thinking about women who are in their 20s, thinking they're wrestling with a lot of things. So where would you start with a question like that? I mean, it's kind of the big one.
Yeah, I think lots of things that I needed as a 20-year-old. I think one of the biggest ones, when I reflect back on my own, like how did it work, was community. I think finding a like-minded community is massive, especially in your 20s. You're asking a lot of questions. You're trying to figure out, what job do I want to do? And am I going to get married? Or who am I going to date? And where do I want to live? Because there's so many opportunities. And so I think having like-minded women and men too, like Bob and I's friendship started in that time of my life. People that are just cheering you on and helping you think biblically about things just can't be overstated how empowering that is.
That's great.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, what else kind of are you maybe even seeing, because you're invested really in the lives of a lot of pretty broad swath of women through this ministry, kind of what you're seeing that younger women need, maybe specifically right now, like in our culture, in our time, like what might young women kind of be missing that they may not even know that they're missing?
Yeah, I think a lot about biblical literacy, which seems really kind of like, oh, I should read my Bible, but really and truly, we should read our Bible.
Yeah.
It's like, it really, and not just read, but interact and think about and find resources, find a good Bible study, people to walk alongside with you and talk about, and not just talk about, but help you apply the Bible. I think especially the way culture swings and how right now it's kind of a free-for-all. Like it feels so disorienting in a lot of layers.
Yeah.
So being able to know what you believe and why you believe it, and having the people around you to say, like, I'm with you, like, we believe this together, we can keep going, feels really important.
Yeah.
That's so good.
That's helpful.
Yeah, well, you've sort of mentioned some of it, but what's something that you've seen and learned by working with Grace Laced and having so much exposure to so many women? I'm sure you get lots of conversations and things, but not just in the U.S., probably the world, right? So all over the world. But what's something, one, that's worrisome as you're interacting with all these women? And then conversely, what's something that's really been encouraging in your interactions?
Such a good question. I think one of the worrisome things is probably an age-old worry, but comparison. I think the way that plays out, especially in social media culture, it just feels so disheartening. I think to realize how many people get trapped by thinking they have to be like this person or like that person, and they're not living into their own identity of who God made them to be. And that just feels like we're robbing the church of like the gifts that God has given. And so I think that's the one thing that sticks out maybe as a worry, and it's not new, but continues to be something that I see women grapple with.
Yeah.
I think something that's encouraging, there's a lot of encouraging things. I think the way, it's kind of a two-sided coin, because I think that the way communities do come together, even online, or like finding ways to plug in with people. Not everyone lives in a place where there's an amazing church down the corner that they can just like go to. So our ability to find resources and share with each other and connect with people even when they're not in your town, I think that's super encouraging. I think the broader perspective of global, like big C church right now and how we can connect is really encouraging.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that's good. So, as you know, like Binmin is really committed to helping men and women figure out what is my next step in my spiritual life. So even just thinking about, based on our conversation today and some of these pieces, what would you encourage folks, viewers, listeners, to say, hey, maybe consider this as a next step?
Yeah, I think, so like you mentioned, I work with Ruth Jo Simons, and she has a new book that just came out right before we recorded this. And there's a phrase in there that she says, someday is made up of thousands of right nows. And I just think about how much like we want to see this end result happen. Like, I just want to be there. I want to skip all of this stuff. I just want to get to that point. And so truly like finding a next step, like starting where you are right now makes a difference. This moment makes a big difference for where you want to end up. So I think look around you, like find women, whether it's somebody in your actual life or like an author, somebody that you can say, I want to be like that person, or what I know about that person, you know, and like, what did it take to get them there? Like, what habits did they need to have? Like, how, if they love the Lord so deeply, ask them, like, what helped cultivate your love for the Lord? And then start integrating those things into your life, even now.
Yeah, that's really good. That's a great next step. Yeah. So what's your next step? Focus on right now. You may even be listening to this podcast when you're on a commute. You might be watching this on a lunch break at work. I don't know what's going on for you right now, but today the Lord may be knocking on your heart to say, here are some questions, or here is a person that you need to look to bless, to connect with, to listen to consider a next step that the Lord wants to use you on in your life, because you don't magically wave the wand and become an amazing rock star leader at age 50. You want to follow the Lord's calling, and He's with you right now, today. So take one baby step today, maybe by blessing someone, maybe by finding a book that's helpful for you in your spiritual growth. Maybe it's a time of prayer and discernment with the Lord. But right now, maybe even tonight, focus on right now on what the Lord might want to have you do as a step today. Let us know, by the way, if you feel comfortable with what that was, what the step of right now was for you, whether it's here on the comments on this episode or whether it's on our socials, because boy, do we love hearing from you.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Libby. And especially thank you, Eve. By the way, I love Eve as well. And thank you for joining us for this episode of the Binmin podcast. We know that the Christian life can be hard to figure out, but we also believe everyone should know their next step for making their spiritual life more important to them. Binmin exists as a resource ministry to help you discover those next steps.
So go ahead and jump on binmin.org and check out the show notes for this episode and all kinds of other resources up on there. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter if you don't already get it, so you can get updates that are going on in the world of Binmin or things that are coming up soon that we can let you know about. Check us out on all the different socials, platforms, and feel free to share this onward with others so that they can find their next steps as well. We loved having you for this episode. Thanks for joining us. We'll look forward to next time. God bless.